This week, there's been a policy change that will hit solar users, potentially adding 4 to 5 rupees per unit to their electricity bills. Basant has had a booming economic impact, estimated to have generated almost 6 billion rupees this year alone. And then there's Pakistan's $1 billion pledge, aimed at turning the country into an AI hub by 2030. These are three stories that hint at where the economy may be headed. Welcome to Pakistan and Counting's weekly news interpreter. Here's what caught our eye this week. Pakistan's power regulator, the National Electric Power Regulatory Authority, NEPRA, approved a major change for rooftop solar users. Pakistan is moving from net metering to net billing. Here's what that means in simple terms. Under the old system, net metering, if your solar panels produce 10 units during the day and you use 10 units at night, your bill roughly balanced out. You are effectively exchanging units with the grid on a one-to-one basis. Now, under net billing, that exchange is no longer equal. If you send electricity to the grid, it's bought at a lower fixed rate, reported around 11 rupees per unit for new users. But when you take electricity from the grid, you still pay the full slab rate, often 25 rupees to 40 rupees or more. So the electricity you sell is cheaper than the electricity you buy. That's the structural shift. The announcement has triggered strong criticism. Critics argue this shift didn't happen in a vacuum. Many say the government is now trying to fix past policy excesses and unfavorable contracts that made net metering too generous for a stressed grid. But others warn that rather than addressing core problems like IPP costs, cross subsidies, and distribution inefficiencies, the reform shifts burden onto ordinary consumers and undermines confidence in renewable investment. It is being said that instead of solving the structural problems within the energy system, the policy change might push consumers off grid, accelerate battery adoption, and further weaken the grid. So why does this matter? Because this isn't just about solar bills, it's about the structure of Pakistan's power system. In the short term, this likely improves cash flows for distribution companies. The gap between what they pay solar users and what they charge consumers narrows. But in the medium to long term, behavior changes. If exporting excess electricity becomes less attractive, households may choose to store it instead, accelerating lithium battery adoption and reducing reliance on the grid. That shifts Pakistan further toward a hybrid system, part centralized grid, part decentralized solar plus storage. So this decision doesn't end rooftop solar, but it changes the incentives, and that may reshape how power is produced, stored, and consumed in urban Pakistan over the next few years. After nearly 25 years, Basant returned to Lahore last weekend as a government-regulated pilot event. It was banned in 2007 following fatalities linked to metal and glass-coated strings. Now it's back, but under the Punjab regulation of Kite Flying Act 2025, only 9-thread cotton strings were allowed. Metal, nylon, chemical, and glass strings were banned. The kites were to be QR-coded, zonal monitoring was to be in place, fines up to 5 million rupees and jail terms for violations. And on the demand side, the country witnessed 540 million rupees worth of kites sold within days. Rooftops rented out for up to 2 million rupees. Karachi to Lahore air tickets crossed 75,000 rupees one way. Around 540 manufacturing units registered for production. This is not just nostalgia for a fondly remembered spring festival. This is serious economic activity. This is what economists call cultural economics. Estimates vary, but even conservative adjustments indicate that the event generated between 5 to 6 billion rupees in total activity, with the sale of kites and strings alone generating around rupees 2 billion. Some projections this year go as high as 20 billion rupees in overall economic impact. Where does that money flow? To kite manufacturing clusters, paper and bamboo supply chains. Historically, up to 7% of paper consumption in the 1960s. Hospitality and hotel occupancy, food vendors, transport, rooftop rentals, and media and corporate sponsorships.
अब मैं आपको ज़रा बसंत की एस्टिमेशन बताता हूँ जनाब कि ट्रेड होती है, पतंगों की एक सनत तैयार होती है, हज़ारों घरों में पतंग बनती है, वो बिकती भी है, डोर बिकती है, छतें बुक करवाई जाती हैं, होटल एक महीना पहले बुक करवा लिए जाते हैं, ट्रांसपोर्ट बुक करवाई जाती है, फूड स्टॉल्स लगते हैं। इस सारी इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी ने ऑन एवरेज बसंत को एक हफ्ते में कितनी नेट वर्थ का फेस्टिवल बनाया? अप्रॉक्सीमेटली $250 million.
Historically, estimates suggest 10 to 15 lakh livelihoods were linked to the festival economy. This is a 3-day event activating multiple micro-industries simultaneously. And there's a second layer, soft power. In the late 1990s, the event was used to counter Pakistan's global hardline image, becoming part of Lahore's international branding. The economic question isn't Is Basant emotional? The real question is, can Pakistan afford to permanently shut down multi-billion rupee cultural industries, or should it regulate them better? At the Indus AI Week 2026, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif announced that Pakistan will invest $1 billion in the AI sector by 2030. The pledge is positioned around AI research and PhD scholarships, national AI curriculum integration, compute and infrastructure investment, startup ecosystem support, and public sector AI adoption, coupled with the national AI policy that came out last year. We can see that the government is framing AI not just as a tech initiative, but as a national productivity lever. Spread over 4 years, that's roughly $250 million per year. The headline is big, but the interpretation matters more than the number. This isn't just a tech story, it's an industrial policy story. Countries that win in AI aren't just building apps. They're building compute infrastructure, skilled workforces, data governance systems, and domestic AI firms. Pakistan is signaling it wants to move from AI consumption to AI production. But the real question is this $1 billion catalytic capital or symbolic capital? Because AI's economic impact isn't chatbots, it is manufacturing efficiency, supply chain optimization, agriculture yield modeling, government service digitization, and better tax administration. If executed well, AI investment could improve export competitiveness, reduce leakage in public finance, and increase firm-level productivity. But AI without power reliability, cloud infrastructure, and data access has limits. And execution is everything. Who controls the fund? Historically, Pakistan has announced ambitious tech roadmaps before. So clarity will determine whether $250 million a year transforms capability or disperses into projects. And here's the bigger tension. Pakistan is simultaneously struggling with energy pricing, managing IMF conditionality, balancing fiscal consolidation, trying to grow exports, and now betting on AI. So the core question becomes, can a country still building its industrial base leapfrog into AI? Or is AI the tool that upgrades that base? That's the week in motion. We'll keep tracking the signals that matter. See you next week.